Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of JMMB Goal Getter. And I can't say live because this is not live. This is very much recorded, as you would have picked up by now. But it's a very, very important episode that we wanted to do. And so we've pulled a team together, pulled a panel of subject matter experts together. And by the title of this episode, you would have recognized that it's something that you really want to stay tuned to. But first, I am Carrie Ann Stimson. I'm the Group Chief Marketing Officer, CMO at JMMB Group. And I am here to host another wonderful but very, very insightful conversation today about what has really been impacting so many people and at an increasing rate. And that is the whole matter of acts of fraud and scams, as is more popularly said in our Jamaican parlance. We've really seen an increase in the number of reported acts of fraud and scams taking place. Lots of clients of all, I would say most, or certainly a lot of local financial institutions, including JMMB, unfortunately, have fallen victim to scams perpetrated by unscrupulous individuals who don't work with the financial institutions at all, really, in those instances. And so we really wanted to have a conversation about what are some of the types of frauds or scams that we see being perpetrated right now. And we also really, of course, most importantly, want to tell you what you can do to keep yourself safe. Because the reality of it, folks, is that while we're recording this, and this, we're actually recording this on Monday, the 8th of May. And in as much as we're recording it right now, and we know right now what are the types of frauds and scams that are out there, while we're talking, the scammers are hard at work. The fraudsters are hard at work coming up with the next type of scam. And by next week, probably by the time this episode is even published, you'll have probably a new or additional suite of scams and frauds that are out there in this space. But what we recognize is that the fundamentals of what you need to do to protect yourself, those will not change. Scam in, scam out, fraud today, fraud tomorrow. The fundamentals really don't change. And so we really also want to take the time to sensitize you and inform you about how you can keep yourself and your money, most importantly, safe. So I'm very happy to be bringing you this discussion and hosting it and moderating it here today with the support of my team. We have two wonderful subject matter experts, and I'm going to introduce them one by one right now. We have a lady and a gentleman. We're going to introduce the lady first, and she's also the subject matter expert who is also part of the JMMB team. She is Stacey Ann Escoe. We're going to bring her up right now. Hi, Stacey Ann.
Hi, Carrie.
Thank you so much for joining me here today. I know it's your very first time on Goal Getter, as much as you've been a JMMB team member forever.
For a
You
long time.
a long time, just like me. You are here with us for the very first time. So thank
Yes.
you very, very much for joining. So, Stacey, would you share with our viewers what do you do at JMMB? Because I could tell everybody, but JMMB and our long nomenclatures and titles. So I'd rather you
Right.
tell everybody what you do and who you are. Thank you.
So, won't get into the title. It's too long to even type. I got a 50 word limit. So, I support the organization in receiving the disputes that clients submit, investigating them. We monitor for any unusual activity. We try to detect fraud and scams before they occur or as they have occurred. And also, my other hat is with the Jamaica Bankers Association Anti-Fraud Committee. We are a team of anti-fraud practitioners within the local sector that support each other. No competition there. We're all trying to fight fraud. And so we support each other in terms of sharing information as to what it is that we are seeing, how it is that we are all addressing it in our respective shops, and just really trying to support each other in fighting this monster, scams and frauds that are impacting our clients.
And I'm so glad that you are mentioning the fact that you have two hats that you wear, because yes, you are part of the JMMB team in that capacity, but you also are part of the Jamaica Bankers Association, the anti-fraud committee, because this really is not just a JMMB phenomenon. We recognize that
Yes.
all clients from perhaps the majority of financial institutions, not just banks, but investment houses as well, are experiencing this monster, as you rightly said. And so
Right.
you are able to not just give us a glimpse into what is being reported into JMMB as it has happened, but you've also been picking up on the ground what has been impacting the clients of other financial institutions as well. So we appreciate that broad-based purview that you're able to bring to this conversation as well, Stacey. Thank you so very much. And
Mhm.
our second subject matter expert, second and final, and this is a gentleman now. He is not a JMMB team member, but certainly an expert in his own right. And I'll tell you exactly why he's here after I invite him. We're going to bring him up. He's Shamir Douglas, and we're going to invite him to tell us who he is, what he does, and then I'll tell you why Shamir is here. Hi, Shamir. Welcome to JMMB Goal Getter Live.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Hi, Carrie. Hi, Stacy. So, similar to Stacy, I wear quite a number of hats. Fortunately and unfortunately, depends on the perspective on the given day. But my title might say IT consultant, but it's really more of a catch-all term. That's very broad in our industry. But on a day-to-day basis, primarily what I do is I function as a penetration tester or an ethical hacker. And as it sounds, the guys that kind of go around, guys and girls that go around, breaking into folks' computer network. Except the ethical side of it means that I am on the good guy side. The intent there is to find ways into computer systems to really figure out the weaknesses in the enterprise and help the key stakeholders, the administrators, and so on to fix these before the bad guys leverage them. Additionally, I operate at times as a security engineer where I'll install, operate, configure tools that help, with that same objective. And I also wear the hat as an auditor. In that regard, it's a lot less hands-on, a lot less technical. Usually I'm working with clients to figure out what we call security controls in terms of making sure, again, the environment is secure and safe, for its normal operation. And finally, related to all those areas, I also teach these different topics at a local university here in the United States. Some of my clients are large federal agencies, a lot of the three-letter folks that you might have heard about on the news, and also quite a number of banks here in the United States. So, hopefully I'll be able to share some perspective, that we have on this side of the aisle.
Wonderful. And I'm glad, see, you had to give all of that background to yourself, because I think you've just about answered the question. Because, when we thought of putting this conversation together, it's certainly one thing to have our internal team members and those who are part of the local banking sector to contribute to the discussion as far as what we're seeing locally and how our local clients can keep themselves safe and protected. But we thought it was very important to include an international perspective. So Shamir is Jamaican by birth, but he lives and is based in the United States for many years now, and works in exactly this sector, who would have the kind of insights to tell us, what's happening, and perhaps I dare say, perhaps unfortunately, what we can possibly expect. I like to say that when US sneeze, we catch cold. So if it is that, Shamir can bring insights as far as what he's seen, again, how customers can protect themselves from the first world perspective, being a few steps ahead of us, we can certainly take the learnings here locally, and our clients can benefit from Shamir's insights in this conversation as well. So I'm very excited about this discussion. I know we had quite a bit of backstage happenings where we were just kind of aligning on, how we're going to have this conversation flow. But yes, we are excited. Yes, so we are going to now jump right into this wonderful conversation. We have our questions lined up. I know our subject matter experts are ready. So, the very, very first question that we have, which I know is the question that is perhaps foremost on everybody's minds, because I know we get tons of WhatsApp. So speaking on behalf of all of us, especially those of us based here in Jamaica, we get tons of WhatsApp messages, emails with examples of things that are happening in terms of, okay, folks, be careful of this, be careful of that. I heard about this. Who had friends and family who would have been a victim of a scam or a fraud? So we said, you know what, let's start out the conversation by inviting Stacey to share with us specifically, Stacey, in your experience, or certainly in your hat and the hats you wear, both as a member of JMMB, the JMMB team, but also on a broad-based scale within the local banking sector. Could you share with us the types of scams and acts of fraud that you see being experienced and that unfortunately clients would have fallen victim to?
Okay, thanks, Kerry, for inviting me once again. But let's get into what it is that we are seeing. The Bank of Jamaica had put out a thematic study that they'd shared with the financial institutions. They've done it a couple of years now, and consistently at the top of the list is card fraud. But the impact of card fraud is that we have quite a number of clients impacted by it, but the dollar impact per client tends to be low. We just have a lot of clients being impacted, and then the sum total becomes the biggest part of the pie. But there are other types of frauds that are taking place. We are seeing an increase in online banking. It's impacting clients across the various financial institutions.
I'm sorry, Stacey. I'm so sorry. But I wanted to make sure, because we have such a broad audience of people from all over Jamaica and even internationally. So when we say card fraud, you're speaking about credit card, debit card. Is this
I'm
happening
speaking about
only online?
credit and debit card fraud.
Mm-hmm.
As it relates to, there are an increasing number as we move towards chip and pin technology, which most of our financial institutions have embraced. We are seeing the act of card fraud moving away from card present fraud to card not present fraud. Transactions are occurring online. You see these unusual transactions reflected on your statements, and you know you did not execute them. Because once there is access to your card number, then of course the card not present fraud can take place. Because some merchants do not necessarily ask for the CVV code, for example.
Okay. Okay. So, and this can happen, yes, credit card, but I'm sure debit cards are also falling
Oh
victim.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. So online banking, you are moving on.
Right.
Thank you so
So
much.
we have online banking fraud. It's coming in various forms. There's fake websites. There are persons who they have, sadly shared their information. They've been phished, as in some form of technique is used, some unsolicited email or a text message. They click on a link, they download an attachment, they provide their login credentials, and thinking that they are providing it to a legitimate source. Sometimes they think they're providing it to the financial institution when in fact they are not. So it comes in various forms, and then clients' accounts are compromised, and you see these transactions taking place via the online platform. We have other types of fraud, check fraud, that's self-explanatory. We have scams. Recently, the news outlet had shared a video regarding romance scams. That's a common one. Persons are falling victim to persons oftentimes overseas that they think they're in a romantic relationship with, and they are convinced to deposit money to an account in receipt of gifts and luxury items that they think they're getting. I keep saying I liken it to lottery scamming coming back to haunt us. When we think about lottery scamming and the persons overseas falling victim to it, and we say it could never happen here in Jamaica. We're not so fool and that kind of thing. But we are finding persons who engage in these relationships with persons that they think are their forever partner, and they fall victim to it. We are seeing instances of rental scams. Persons who are not owners or agents of properties are duping persons who are desirous of renting a property into making deposits, oftentimes on properties they have never seen before, etc. There are other scams, social media. You're making purchases online via website, and then as soon as you send off your money, the website is no longer available, your money is gone, and you didn't receive the goods that you thought you were purchasing. And then lastly, we are seeing instances of persons willingly sharing their account information. They think it is part of the process of a job fair. They know it is a scam because the message is saying, we can load your account, just provide your account information and we split the money 50-50, that kind of a thing. So they know that they're party to it. And then there are others who innocently think that they're providing their account information for a legitimate purpose. But, when you look at the circumstances that follow, you recognize that this is actually a scam. And these persons who have shared this account information and fraudulent funds pass through their account, they too become party to that crime. And so they have to be cognizant of that. And in a nutshell, those are the more popular ones that we are seeing locally.
Thanks for sharing that, Stacey. And, I wanted to dig a little deeper because what I've found, as we've been communicating and engaging with clients around the different types of fraud and scams, I find that some persons may perhaps underestimate the or underestimate their ability to fall victim, depending on the type of scam that they hear about. So maybe you could say, well, arguably the romance scam, well, that would never catch me, because whatever, I'm not taking no man word for no gospel and I'm not going to be caught in that. And that's probably true in your instance or your particular personal instance. But there could be some other types of scams or acts of fraud that can be so subtle, when we talk about what they're doing to just kind of catch you in a moment of vulnerability and give you access to you can give them access to your accounts. I just would love to bring up some examples here, Stacey, of things we've
Sure.
seen. And again, not just unique to JMMB, but across our local sector. So I'm just going to share my screen here. I'll share an example of something that we would have picked up on. Okay, I think this is the one. All right. So here is an example.
Right.
Right. And can you tell us what we're looking at here, Stacey? Does this look familiar to you? I'm sure it
Yes,
does.
this looks very familiar to us. So we have had a couple instances where fraudsters actually pay for a sponsored Google ad, so that when we do a Google search, the top search result becomes this fake website. Now, to the average person, they may not necessarily recognize it, but if you look closely, you will see that instead of moneyline.jmmb.com, which is our usual website, what you are seeing is the M being replaced by an R and an N. So you're seeing RN on a line, and we are seeing two L's, and they do it again in the JMMB. It is actually JRNMB.
Mhm.
And they put a dash instead of a dot between the money line and the JMMB. And they add an extension .tech. That is not usually what JMMB will say.
Mhm.
So we
Mhm.
have to be mindful.
JMMB.com.
They will
Mhm.
make changes to the spelling, and R and an R beside an N looks like an M, and so persons are tricked.
Yes.
The extensions, you put two L's, it may get missed. You put two I's, it may get missed. So we have to be careful.
Very much so. I'd love to bring up
Changing,
another
etc.
example.
So we have to be careful.
I'd love to bring up another example here of
Okay.
something that we've seen. Yes.
Right. So this is an example of, I mentioned before, job fairs, for example. They're recruiting staff members and they will say, click on this link. And when you click on the link, it starts asking for your account information. And what it is that they're actually trying to recruit you to become what they call a money mule, someone who will transport their money for them. And that money is not really their money, but it's money from compromised accounts that they're now passing through your account. So you provide this account information, you think this is a job that you have gotten, you're getting paid a salary for providing this service. And from that salary that you receive that goes into your account, a portion of it has to be wired out. In some instances, we have seen and we've heard where the person who has recruited you has asked for
Mhm.
your debit card and they hold possession to the debit card.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
this
It,
is
I
one
mean, and
example.
this unfortunately is easy for someone to fall prey to, especially if I'm someone who is unemployed, or
Exactly.
even if I am employed, I'm looking for a better job. I get this text
Right.
message perhaps on my phone to say, hey, job opportunities, you don't need a lot of experience, you just work with your phone. And I get to click through, and it looks like a great opportunity when what it
Right.
really is, as you say, is just someone really trying to get my account information so it can go through. I know we've seen stuff on the news recently where these fictitious job fairs are taking place.
Right.
Like I know Girl Guides Association was a couple months back, and people turn up for a job fair that wasn't to be. And I shudder to think how they perhaps would have registered for the job fair and given away their banking information. Perhaps it really is quite unfortunate. Here is another one, Stacey, and we love to share the examples because people
Right.
really need to see real examples, and not all of them are JMMB related or impacted JMMB clients. Some of them impacted even one of our major competitors. Here is one right here.
Right. So once again, another message that says that something has happened and you need to click on this link to have it addressed. In this instance, they're saying that the person's account has been placed on hold due to multiple failed attempts, and they want you to verify the information. If you look closely, there is an additional N in the website address. It is asking you to verify your information. So chances are when you click on that link, what you're going to see are questions asking you to provide very sensitive financial information.
Yes, yes. And it's so close because if I may say that NCB, this is NCB, National Commercial Bank, would be probably the bank that they're trying to refer to here.
Right,
Their URL is jncb.com. But
right,
what the fraudsters have done here is that they've added an additional N, which
exactly.
again, if you're on your phone, you get this text message or this thing, and you're like, oh, quick, oh my God. And you know, the urgency of it, and you tap on it, you don't even stop to realize that it's two ends that's there, not one. And unfortunately, you could get caught. You know, it's
Right.
wow, ouch, ouch, ouch. There's one last example here, Stacey, that I want to bring up before we move on in this great, great conversation. Here's another one. This is on Instagram, social media, which you could easily get on Facebook as well. So it's not because, oh, I'm not on Instagram. This could actually
Right.
happen to you on Facebook as well or Twitter.
Right. And this is someone enticing you to earn money that you actually have not worked for. And all it is once again getting you to provide your account information so they can pass through stolen money through your account and
Hmm.
gain access to it.
Yes, 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 yes. Wow. And again, depending on the individuals, and all these fraudsters need is just one victim, you know. They
Right,
don't need 100. They just need
exactly.
maybe one or two for this type of scam, and then the next day is another kind of scam. They try again. That's all they need. So it really is it really is something that exists, and it's great that we are able to share some examples of what's been happening, Stacey,
Right.
and we appreciate that. And folks, don't worry, we've only just started the conversation, so we will go into how you can keep yourself safe, because as I shared at the top of the conversation, the examples we're sharing now, these are old examples. There'll be a whole new set of examples next week, because again, these scammers, these fraudsters continue to work overtime. That's their full-time job, of
Yes.
trying to find a way to get you. You know what I mean? And so we're gonna go into later on the fundamentals that are required to keep yourself safe, whichever scam may come your way or you may be
Mhm.
presented with. So thank you so much, Stacey. So Shamir, thank you so much again for joining and for your patience. Now again, Shamir, you're based overseas, you're based internationally, and you've been seeing a lot in your space and with the conversations you've been having with various stakeholders and so on where you are. Could you give us a sense of anything we need to be aware of? You know, so we know what's happening here based on what you're seeing, based on your vantage point.
Sure.
What can you say are any new or emerging threats or trends where frauds and scams are concerned that we kind of need to keep our ears to the ground about, or certainly our eyes peeled for?
Sure, not a problem. I appreciate that, Kerry. So, oddly enough, I think it's a weird, excuse me, chicken and egg kind of question, because in a lot of ways, there really isn't anything new under the sun, so to speak. But at the same time, they're using new avenues, slightly new techniques, and some modification on the old techniques to kind of figure out ways to get, to bypass either actual technical controls or to just kind of further convince the users, because if you look at the example you presented a few minutes ago with the Instagram post, at the core of it, it's kind of the same thing as the insert country here scam from 20 years ago, but now they're using a different platform. So a lot of it has to do with, being aware that whatever platform you're on, people are also finding you there. And at the core of it, it's just the same social engineering. So one of the things I wanted to do in kind of starting out this conversation is from a more technical standpoint.
I'm sorry, Shamir. Again, standing for our listeners. What is social engineering,
I
please?
was gonna
Oh,
say
so I'm jumping ahead. Okay, I'm
no worries,
excited. I'll
no
shut
worries.
up.
Not a problem at all. It's a common question, and these terms are
Yeah.
thrown about, and folks don't
Okay.
quite define
You do
them.
your thing. You do your thing.
Sure, no worries, no worries. There's somewhere in the tagline it said professor, so I do know that people ask these questions all the time. But one of the things I wanted to kind of iron out a little bit is oftentimes, especially, and the reason why I'm bringing up computers is because so much of our lives now are digital. We have to acknowledge that. So it is integral to how we operate, our lives on a day-to-day basis. So one of the things I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of clarify is folks tend to utilize privacy and security interchangeably, but they're not quite the same. And I'll use the analogy where privacy is basically closing your curtains while security is putting a grill on your window. They're very different things, but they're oftentimes related. And as we have this conversation, you're going to see moments where it's one versus the other, but there are nuances. So jumping back towards when I mentioned social engineering, so that's the act essentially of getting a user to perform a certain task by by how you express that communication with them, utilizing things like fear or emotion, something like that. So that's the crux of it, what social engineering is. It's an actual art, it's an actual science. It's understanding that humans react a lot, significantly to fear. Certain types of emotions invoke a higher response. So social engineering leverages that to say, okay, if I present something to you and it says, your account is being emptied by $500,000 or something like that, people are going to react to that very quickly. So then you get them to click on links and things of that nature. So that's the core of what social engineering is. There's a much more detailed and elaborate technical description, but that should suffice for now. One of the other things that I wanted to take the opportunity to mention here is, because of the advent of social media generally, and just again all our presence on the internet, a lot of fraudsters, so to speak, have a lot more information about us. A lot of information is very much out there, and unfortunately, because United States, North America generally, and other nations the like, we have had our presence online for a very long time, and the unfortunate reality of that is when organizations get breached, or information is leaked out on the internet. So somewhere out there is the folks' social security numbers are floating around, places that they've lived. People are able to figure out mothers' maiden names, all these things that are security measures that would be able to bypass the banking control, reset someone's password, things of that nature. So that's the unfortunate reality of where we are, and that's a big trend where you're seeing we call them the adversaries, essentially are able to really come at this at a more professional level. They're coming in with a lot more information, and especially if they're really targeting certain key individuals. One of the other thing I would mention here is in some of those examples that you guys displayed a few minutes ago, the intentional misspelling. Now, gone are the days when a lot of times you'll see those insert African nation here scams where they would, it's not written it's written in poor English and it's not grammatically correct and so on, because they really weren't as strong English speakers. But actually what we've seen over the last several years is it's a lot more intentional now. The idea is, if we're able to get, send this email, this text message, this social media DM, if we're able to send this to someone and they don't recognize the misspelling, they don't realize, an extra letter here or there, that's actually the perfect mark. That's the person who's easier to get. So sometimes they'll send these messages out, and that's actually intentional, that they misspell things, because they don't want to waste time on people like you and I. You and I are much more difficult. We're harder targets, and there's so many more soft targets to go at. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, again, we're doing a lot more banking on our phones. Mobile apps are also being compromised, and unfortunately, one of the things in my industry that I've seen is, even though we all utilize these technology items every day, a lot of us don't really understand how they work. And in the background, your phone is working just like the computer. You just don't see it. You're interacting with it slightly different. So a lot of the weaknesses that your computer has, your phone has them too. You install a certain app and you give it permission to, read different things on your phone. Well, it's potentially able to read the storage area of your banking app, and somewhere in there they maybe store some other information. And this is how a lot of this activity also occurs. And then the final one I wanted to bring up in terms of new and emerging techniques is really the use of cryptocurrency. Now, that is a huge, broad swath of area. Just it's its own topic. But some of the key ways you're seeing that is having those transactions occur utilizing cryptocurrencies. The main reason being anonymity. It's very hard to track. Not impossible, but it's very hard to track. If you have a crypto transaction that's in the hundreds of million US dollars, someone is vested into finding that, so they'll be able to track it. But if folks are losing the equivalent of US $100 here and there, it's literally not worth their time to put that investment in. So because the fraudsters know that, they're utilizing all these avenues. And the other one is what we call pump and dump schemes. Now, you also kind of see that in the stock market itself, but you'll see it here where folks will quickly broadcast, some crypto related thing, or look, get this quick coin, real quick, it's gonna go sky high, to the moon. And then what starts happening is folks kind of, start sharing their information. They start, well, to get this coin, you don't get it on the main coin exchanges. You have to sign up to this page over here. And in the background, they're stealing your debit card, stealing your credit card, stealing your checking account information. And sometimes you'll actually see them run a full on product. But in the background, the main aim is to take that information, and they'll do what is called a rug pull, and they just kind of disappear with all that money, just gone. So a lot of that stuff is what we're seeing heavily here in terms of new emerging techniques. But at the same time, they're kind of still playing on those core human tenets of our emotions. We're in harsh economic times. Everyone wants to make that extra dollar, and they really believe in it. And the unfortunate reality is, it's if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad that you put all of that context in, because it's I guess the big thing, because going back to the mention of social engineering, it's really like, how do you play on people's psyche, or catching them in a particular space or frame of mind, to really catch them at perhaps their most vulnerable, especially for the softer targets, as you would have mentioned.
No,
All
absolutely,
right.
absolutely. That makes sense. And I think the reality of it is, you're seeing, again, as mentioned before, this time that we're in, folks really want to win. And, that makes them a lot more vulnerable to these kind of activities, because one of the things we see here, of course, by the nature of the clients that I typically work with, it's a little bit, my point of view is a little bit less focused on the individual end users, but more on the enterprise, so they're
Mhm.
trying to get the keys to the kingdom. But the tactics and techniques are more or less the same. They're going to go after someone high level and try to get, into their accounts that way. We always tell people don't use password 123, and I mean, it's the unfortunate truth that people still use that. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and we know it's
Mhm.
difficult. As a regular user as well, I try to just make sure if I see something, it's like, but I don't want to get too far ahead in terms of what we can do to defend ourselves. But just wanted to
Yes.
share some quick insight in that regard.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Shamir. And yes, as you rightly said, we are going to move into that part of the discussion where, and I know that's a big question on everybody's mind. It's like, well, okay, what do I need to do to stay safe? These people are making it their full-time business to try and get my money. But how do I do that? But before we get there, Stacey, if I'm a client of JMMB, I know every bank has their protocols, but it's pretty much the same. But as a JMMB client, if I recognize that I'm a victim of an act of fraud or a scam, what do I do? What should be my next steps? You're muted, Stacy. It's okay. It happens to me all the time, girl. Okay, we're still not hearing you. I don't know why, because I see your mute button. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Hearing you now.
If you find that you are a victim of fraud or you suspect that you are a victim of fraud, you have identified transactions that you did not initiate, you received verification codes for actions that you did not initiate, you think you may have disclosed information to a fake site or compromised your information in some way, shape, or form, you're getting transaction messages to say that a card transaction has declined due to insufficient funds when you know that there should be sufficient funds. These are all telltale signs that something may be amiss. And so we are asking you that you contact us immediately. There, you contact us through our client care center. There's the information there in terms of how you can contact us. You contact your relationship officer, and you advise them that this is what has happened. By contacting the client care center, they'll be able to shut down your card, disable your money line, for example, for you. And then you're required to complete a dispute form. The forms are available on our website. If you go to JMMB's website and you type in dispute in the search bar, you'll see the forms there. There's a moneyline dispute form, there's a Visa debit card dispute form, and there's a general transaction dispute form. And you can download these forms. They're also fillable, and you'll be directed how you can email it in, whether it is to info@jmb.com or you route it through your relationship officer. These disputes are received and they're routed to the various channels where they are investigated, where recovery efforts are initiated, through recalls with the receiving banks, for example, as well as through the Visa claims. We try to recover through Visa claims if it is a transaction that can be claimed back through Visa. And we try to, as best as possible, to support the client in the recovery efforts. And of course, we try as best as possible to investigate and identify what went wrong and how it is that we can guide the client in the future, how it is we can enhance our processes, our systems, etc. And so that is the aim. So another thing, so you complete the dispute form, you support us in our investigations, so we will reach out to you, we'll have the conversation to to complete the investigation, we'll recommend to you that you report the matter to the police. We will say that where funds have been wired overseas, or correspondent banks are asking as evidence or support for that recall of the transaction, they are asking for a police report. And so we encourage you to file a police report and provide us with that document. So we recommend also that you don't attempt to conduct any more transactions via that device if you suspect that your device was the one that was compromised. In some instances, we are seeing where persons' phones have been compromised, and so they recognize that they have lost their phone service. And so we recommend that you go to your telecoms provider and you report to them that you had this situation where your phone was down, and have them investigate that as well. So those are some of the steps that we are recommending that you do take. You may be required also to, get a professional to look at your devices to ascertain whether or not your device was a victim. And device broadly means your laptop, your tablets, your
cell phone,
desktop, your cell phone, right? Have your devices looked at, because it may have been susceptible to some form of malware or virus that resulted in the information that led to the compromise of your account being compromised.
Stacey,
So
I wanted
financial
to
institution immediately. Yes.
Point taken. And there are a couple of clarifying questions that I had. So the first thing is, the main takeaway is that if you suspect that you've been a victim of an act of fraud, the first thing to do is to contact JMMB, contact your financial institution.
Right.
And I want to add, we did put the number there on the screen, so I'm going to ask that we put it back. So the number is 876-998-JMMB or 876-998-5662. And it's important that you have your bank's or your financial institution's legitimate number, legitimate email address saved somewhere accessible. Do not call the number that the text message said you're to call if you have a dispute. No. So you're gonna have to save your bank's, your financial institution's legitimate contact information, email, website, phone number, so that if you need it, you can use those legitimate channels to report or to query your matter, right? That's the other thing. Also, a police report is necessary to be filed.
So we are encouraging our clients. We have had clients who are hesitant or reluctant to do it, but we try to explain to them, the importance of it, but it's still left up to the client.
Yeah, it is a crime. It is a crime. Right. So just like how if thief break into your house, it is what it is. It is a crime. So we encourage that. And then, of course, I also wanted to highlight, Stacey, when you mentioned going onto our website, jm.jmmb.com, no other website, and find our dispute forms. Type in dispute in the search bar to find it real quick. It will come up. You can download the requisite dispute form, whether it's something to do with your card, debit card, JMMB, Visa debit, or if it had something to do with Moneyline, which is our online transaction system, or just a general transaction dispute. Fill out the form and it can be emailed back to us, info@jmmb.com. I wanted to highlight those, Stacey, that I know at the moment our client care center may not be open when you try to call. So when we say call client care center, they may actually be closed depending on when. Let's say I get a transaction alert that my card was used, my debit card was used, and it's 1:00 in the morning, or client care center would be actually closed. So what do I do at that point, please? Just fill out the form, go on the website, fill
Fill
out the
out the
form and
form, go
email
on the
it.
website, email it to info@jmmb.com.
Mm-hmm. And
But we
still
still
call.
encourage you and insist that you do call your account
Call 8
officer
o'clock the
as
next
soon as
morning.
possible
Mm-hmm.
and contact client care. These emails do go into a queue.
Yes. Yes. No.
you
Yeah.
know,
Right. So
right,
the email is really just to join the line, as it were. Get in the
right,
queue. But
right,
we want to arrest if it's something that needs arresting. Please call client care. So don't just send the
right,
email, set it and forget it. Really
exactly.
do attempt to certainly as 8 o'clock morning come, you
Right.
make
And
that
their
call.
hours are Monday to Saturday, 8 to 9 p.m., and on
Mm-hmm.
Sunday, 8 to 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Um, right.
Great. Now, I wanted to dig just a little bit deeper into a point you made about compromising of phones. Because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's one thing. I mean, generally, when your phone is compromised, you can think, okay, so if somebody thief my phone or they get the password to access my phone. But we've also heard of instances where people's phone numbers are being stolen or something like
Right.
that.
So
What
this
have
is
you been
called SIM
hearing?
swap fraud. This is called SIM
Mm-hmm.
swap fraud, and the intent is to basically take over your phone.
Mm,
Or verification codes for a lot of the financial institutions, that one-time password that is sent out is being communicated via SMS. For some institutions, it's being communicated via email. We've seen email compromises, but we're also seeing where phones are compromised, and essentially what happens is that someone goes to or convinces through the production of a fraudulent ID or something to the telecoms entity, and says to them, for example, that I've lost my SIM card, my SIM card got broken or something, and I need a replacement SIM. They get a replacement SIM. Upon receipt of that replacement SIM, once it goes into a device, the true owner of that number has lost access to their phone. So if your phone service is down unexpectedly for an extended period, we are recommending that you contact your telecoms provider.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's technically, it's not so much my phone because I still have my phone
Phone,
in
but
my
it's your
hand.
phone
It's
number
my phone number. So I will
and
have
the
the phone with
information
the
that will get
SIM in there same way. But because
right,
of this person pretending to be me, claiming that they lost and they will get my number, all of a sudden my number stops working in the phone, is what you're saying.
right,
So
right.
not only can I not make any calls, but let's say if my phone, maybe this was where my transactions alerts would have come in either
Exactly.
via SMS to say, oh, your card was used to make a purchase at so and so, and I would get it because my number has no change because these people have basically gone off with it. I'm not going to get it. So I'm not even going to
Right.
know when they've gone into my account because I will no longer get the alerts on my phone.
Exactly. And
Wow.
we have heard of cases where they will go in and they'll turn off the transaction alerts for those entities that allow that option for you to turn off your transaction alerts. We have heard of cases where persons are actually called and they are, we had a recent case, a client was called and the person claimed to be from company X and saying we're running a promotion. Part of this promotion, you would have just gotten a verification code. Please share that verification code. And the individual shared the verification code and in mid conversation recognized that the entity that they thought they were speaking to is not the sender of the verification code, but the sender of the verification code was their financial institution. And in recognizing that they then had just compromised themselves, quickly ended the call and unfortunately deleted the message and never contacted the financial institution.
Wow.
Right. So we
Wow.
just have to be very, very, very careful. And that's what social engineering is about.
Mm-hmm.
finding
Mm-hmm.
means and ways of convincing you to part with sensitive information.
Yes, yes. Wow, 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 wow. Good stuff. So thank you so much for that, Stacey. So now we're moving into the final segment of this wonderful, wonderful, insightful conversation. I mean, I hope everybody is watching. I hope you have your notepad and pen take out and you're taking notes because trust me, this is excellent, excellent information. Again, whether you're a client of JMMB or not, this is valuable for everybody. And feel free to share this episode with anybody who you care about. Just share it with them, tell them to watch it because this is great stuff. So we're going to move into the final segment of this conversation, which is the other big question on everybody's mind is how the dickens do I stay safe with all of these fraudsters and scammers out to get me? So I'm going to jump back over now to Shamir, who again given his perspective on the international front, which certainly would benefit us here locally. Shamir, kick us off in this segment.
Sure.
How can I just keep myself safe? Oh my gosh.
So you could just move out to the forest, unplug your devices, have no internet
Yes.
access, take out everything out of your account, go to cash, and just
Cash
be a
only. Cash
hermit,
only.
for the next 30 or so years until the end of time. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The unfortunate
Yeah.
reality is we have to, interact with the broader economy. We have to be a part of it. And it's interesting because as Stacey was addressing a few points just now, one of the things that I wanted to take the opportunity to mention was I know often folks see these things happen and they're embarrassed. That's why they don't want to report it. They don't tell their friends, their family members. They don't tell the financial institution. They don't tell law enforcement. And the unfortunate reality, it's not nice that I have to say this, but it's happening to a lot of people. So, don't feel that bad about it. But at the same time, that awareness, that sharing information, that reaching out to get help, to get assistance is actually very, very, very important. There are things in place that can help you after the fact. But with that said, kind of jumping around a bit and saying, how can you kind of help protect yourself? One of the things I wanted to touch on first is really just don't assume you won't be a target. A lot of times, people operate under the guise that, oh, it won't happen. I'm not special. I'm not interested. But that's kind of the point. The point is that you're not special. The point is that you're not a celebrity. The point is that your guard is now down. When you think about all these different techniques, all these different tactics that you're utilizing, the idea is the person may be trying to befriend you, as you mentioned, the romantic scams. In a lot of cases it's literally because the folks think that, oh, it won't happen to me because I only have but so much in my account or everything. And honestly, growing up in Jamaica, they said every mickle make a muckle, and it's not common. It happens, but it's not common that these malicious actors are really finding that one-off client that has quite a few $1 million in their account. Yes, it happens, but it's actually not that common. It's just that they're getting a little bit from a lot of different people. So start off with that mindset. Be skeptical. Be skeptical of everything. You go to Google and you type in JMMB, and for whatever reason you don't remember the direct URL, and something looks, even for a split second, it looks a little bit off. Rethink it. Take some time, read that URL. When you enter it into your browser, there's usually a little lock icon in the upper left corner. That one, goes to say that it has HTTPS, which is a security mechanism to say that you're at least communicating securely. Now, the malicious actors can, have a fake domain that does have that security feature. So it's not a catch-all. There's no one thing you'll realize here is there's no silver bullet. There's no one thing you can do unless, as I mentioned before, going to the forest and living forever. But really, there isn't any one thing, and it takes that diligence, that discipline to do it. But there are certain easy ones that you can kind of clarify. The other point, which unfortunately, as Stacey just mentioned, to secure accounts, what a lot of organizations have done is what's called multi-factor, which again is you enter your username, password, and then another code that's often sent to you via SMS. Now, it's exactly as Stacey mentioned, where unfortunately the attackers may social engineer your telecom provider to now take over your phone. So it's not even you who they're directly attacking, but it's still better than nothing, because that's a very heavy lift. It happens, but it's actually a pretty significant lift. The other thing you can do is, and this is the unfortunate reality again, where so much of this we've seen is socioeconomic, is don't, for lack of a better term, steal. Oftentimes, folks try to find free software online, and that's how they introduce a lot of this malicious stuff into their computers. They introduce into their phones. I know sometimes you want to get that movie or you want to go watch this thing online, and money's a little bit tight, but honestly, it is how the attackers are getting in. They're telling you, well, click this link, for this, you can watch Arsenal for free for a month, and all of a sudden you're entering some other information that you didn't realize. So these are things just to keep in mind. The other one I wanted to bring up was, oftentimes in the IT realm, folks tend to forget that so much of our lives are lived just normal physical, and shredding sensitive documents. That's another big one. There's an attack mechanism that's used by folks like myself, called dumpster diving. And that's when you actually go into garbage bin dumpsters looking for sensitive information, especially those of businesses. You and I as individuals may not produce that much, sensitive content, but you go to the back of some major supermarket, you may run into a lot of documents there. Oftentimes you'll see folks' payroll information, you'll see, folks' addresses. And this is again what the malicious actors are using, the fraudsters are using to garner all this information about you, making that message so much more convincing. Because if your salary is X amount per month or per week or whatever the pay period, and a message comes in, and say, oh, suddenly we notice a revocation of your transaction, your direct debit of that salary amount, it's going to seem a lot more convincing. So where you can get rid of those pieces of information. And then the other one I wanted to bring up is, again, it's pay attention to your emotions. If you're in a moment when you're coming home from work, maybe you just missed that bus or that taxi, or someone just drove you poorly on the road, and you're a little bit angry or frustrated, and then in that moment that SMS comes in, that smishing message comes in where it says, oh, someone's taking out money out of your account, you're not really in the best mental space. You're a lot more vulnerable at that time. And if you can take a moment and pause, take a moment to say to yourself, okay, this may really be happening. Let me just pull over somewhere safe. Let me just take a moment, breathe in, breathe out. Let me reach out to, JMMB and make sure that this is not actually happening, and things of that nature are very helpful. Really, as best as you can, try to minimize that emotional response, because that's what the fraudsters are heavily playing into. They're hoping that you're just going to react. You're not going to really think about it, and you're going to quickly just click this. The example that Stacey brought up, where the person just, they got a call, and it's suddenly they're like, read us that code, and then it's like the moment the person read the code, they realize, well, what happened was that process was maybe 10-15 seconds. Had you given yourself, what, was I expecting this call? Who is it? Who is, hello, who is this? And it gives a little bit of delay. Then you may be able to rethink it, and you might turn to your mom, it's like, did you ever get one of these? And then that's how a lot of this stuff kind of gets, mitigated as much as you can. So a lot of it has to do with, protecting yourself by just starting off of those core principles. And the last point I'll make here is, especially at the core IT level, but of course broader with any component of social engineering in any facet of life, did you go looking for it? If you didn't go looking for it, it's probably not for you. Did that person just randomly message you from halfway across the world telling you they're in love? I've never met you before. Think about these things, and it sounds a little bit mean, but it's the reality of it. If you're suddenly you're surfing the internet, and all of a sudden something pops up here so you can make some quick money in crypto, think through those things. Or if it's a situation where, why do I have to give money to get money? Something seems a little bit off there. It's like, so, and the other one that I know I've heard that's often, is that retracting of transactions. Again, if you're supposed to be in some kind of business arrangement with someone, and they said, all right, I'm gonna send the money via, whatever mechanism, give it some time, let it clear, let it settle in your account, let it actually finalize. Again, back to what I said before, emotions, don't rush. It's fine. If the opportunity is going to be missed in a fraction of a second, maybe it just wasn't for you, and that's okay. There will be another opportunity tomorrow, and a lot of that you will realize that as much as someone like myself will spend most of their time heavily entrenched in the technical components of it, reading computer code and all of this stuff, the real security is at the people level. It
Yeah.
really is at that level. And if folks can just continue with that awareness, continue with taking their time, maybe second guess the moment, ask someone for their opinion, maybe get a little bit of feedback, you'd be surprised how a lot of this you can protect yourselves from a lot of this pain. So hopefully that was very helpful for our viewers out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
What's the
good.
Jamaican phrase, Carrie? Me a doubting Thomas.
Right.
Yes, yes,
We need some more doubting Thomases out there, because it is happening. He mentioned something that I forgot to mention at the beginning in terms of a type of scam that happens, and that is where persons send evidence that they have made a payment, and for example a check payment, and clients will see that their balance is updated, but they're looking at the wrong field. They're not looking at the available balance. They're looking at the online
Basically
balance.
pending.
And checks, as you know, there's a holding period. And so we need you to ensure that what you're looking at is the available balance. Wait until the money hits your account and it is now available before you conclude that transaction. But there are other things that we can do. And, Shamir really pointed out some really good things. Just wanted to add, based on the other types of frauds that we're seeing, is that I would recommend for your cards that you don't link your cards to your medium and long-term savings. If it's your medium and long-term savings, then you're not going to be using the money. So, find another product to invest that money in and limit the cash that you're tying to your card. Personally, I don't link my salary account to my card. We know the usual: protect your PIN, protect your card. Too many times we've seen persons entering their PIN and everybody around them can see what it is they have just entered. Other things would include, JMMB is very strong on recommending that we bookmark the online banking website, moneyline.jmmb.com. Thanks for putting it up there. We know the usual things: use unique usernames and passwords. Make sure that our login credentials, that we're not storing them on these accounts, but that we're entering them each time. Make sure we're logging out of these accounts. I would recommend not accessing your online banking or your online shopping where you're doing these kinds of transactions and sharing information, sensitive financial information. I would recommend that you don't access these sites in a public Wi-Fi. Everybody loves a good free Wi-Fi. I would not use it for accessing our accounts and doing our shopping. Persons select security questions and they find the easiest of security questions that me and everybody that knows me knows the answers to.
because you put it on Instagram.
Exactly.
Happy birthday, mom, and mom's full name is there with her maiden name
Full
there.
name, and we get the date of birth, we get all of these things. Our email addresses sometimes are giving us our year of birth, and unfortunately our clients are still using year of birth as pins. The answers to your security questions don't have to be correct, they just have to be remembered. Right. That's a tip I always like sharing. The answers to your security questions just have to be remembered. They don't have to be accurate. So if it's your first car, the answer can be calendar. You just need to remember that the answer to that question is what you have put down there. Don't share your information. And as Kerry pointed out, we are unknowingly sharing our information by all the tweets and all the posts that we are putting out there. So we just have to be very cognizant of those things. We pointed out about check fraud, ensuring that we are checking for the available balances. And then we look at the scams. If it's too good to be true, it probably is not true, right? That rent that they're charging, that's not usually what they would charge. Is that really legitimate? Do your own investigation. Somebody has said that they are renting this property. Do a Google search on the property. You may just find it listed as an Airbnb, or you may just find who the true owner is, for example. Um, be very cautious in what it is that you are doing. I know when you are lonely, and we're seeing 20 to 80-year-olds falling victim to romance scams, and they tell you that the sun rises and sets with you, and they send you videos. Literally, they are sending them videos of the money being counted,
Right.
and the brand name bags and the other luxury items being placed in the box. But then you're required to pay duty, and you're required to pay duty by depositing those monies into an individual's account. Those are red flags. Why are you paying duty? Why are you even paying for this? If he loves you, he should kind of cover it. It's a gift from him, so he should cover it. So just tell him that it's all right. Take some of the money out, pay the duty, and I'll collect it. All I want to do is collect it.
Can I say something? There was this article or video story. I think it was either Glean or Observer, where it's a similar thing, right? So Miss Thing has this guy from Eastern Europe. This Miss Thing,
Right.
meaning a Jamaican lady, has a guy from Eastern Europe who reaches out to her, and oh yeah, they start this hot online romance, right? And he does that. He shows her the cash. Oh, when is your birthday? Your birthday coming up? Yeah, man. And him show her the video with the cash. And he walking into the department store to buy the expensive handbag and thing. And then him show her some slip to say, yeah, man, I ship off the goods. So you soon get your birthday present. So Miss Thing is waiting, right? Who she hears from next is not Mr. Eastern Europe, but Mr. Trevor Mary, hypothetical name, which is Jamaican now,
If there's
calling
a
from
Trevor Mary
customs.
listening right now,
You
that is
understand?
very,
Yeah.
very much not pleased.
Fictitious Trevor. No, no, yeah. Hypothetical. I'm just coming up with a nice Jamaican name, right? So you know, say Trevor Mary, a nice Jamaican name, or Donovan. Call her and say, I'm calling from customs. And we have some goods here from Mr. Eastern Europe for you. Are you Miss So and so? Yes, we have some goods here for you, but you're going to have to pay X amount to clear the goods, please and thanks, if you want your goods. And the man give her first thing, and she sent off to clear the goods. So she don't. So it's not even Mr. Eastern Europe is the scammer in her mind. It's custom, so it's still legitimate because it's two separate independent people, right? And she ended up paying maybe twice for the goods because the first amount wasn't enough. She need to send more because they've done a reval, and it's mostly $300,000 in the end. She said, and she's still getting calls. So she said, no, she look in the directory and call
Right.
customs
Right.
and say, customs, hold on, I've been speaking to your officer, Mr. Donovan, Mr. Trevor, Mr. whatever, and I pay my money, and him say I need to pay. What is going on? I want to saw thief. They're like, excuse me, miss, no, we don't have that going on. What are you talking about? She was scammed $300,000. So it's not even the lover that, in her mind, because it's two people working together that just totally wrapped her up. And it's so unfortunate.
Yeah.
And
And we've heard of the lover also starting to hint at having some financial difficulties, went overseas to work, and is now stranded in this country, and
Oh, yes. Old
and I
as
was
the
supposed to be
hills.
coming to you for vacation, just send some money
Old as the
and I'll
hills.
come to you. Book the hotel, and our
Mm-hmm.
ladies here are booking the hotels and arranging
Bless them.
transportation, and
Bless them. Anybody want to book a hotel from here?
you
No, it's
know,
a
if,
serious thing, though. But
and
yes.
if I could dive in a bit, and I think
Mm-hmm.
what has been highlighted, by at least the last few minutes of our conversation is one of the things I like to remind folks about is that the malicious actors, the scammers, the fraudsters, it's a job. It's a full-time job for them. They're doing their research. They're investigating these things. If the this is actually one of the things that I do, from time to time, on the good side. um but if I were to figure that out with someone, you start off by just paying attention to their social media profile, seeing the places they frequent. You get an idea of where they live. That note probably gives you a good idea of, okay, where did their children go to school. I notice from time to time they take pictures in a certain area. So okay, if I'm gonna go online, to your account, all right, so what's likely going to be your username? It's probably something very similar to what your email is. I know folks are going to pick, all right, I know what your father's name is, your mother's name is, your siblings. I'm going to try some combination of those. It could just be your address. So it's a lot of times people might think that, no one will guess my password, but unfortunately, your password is likely derived from some component of your life. When you
Right.
mentioned earlier, I think it was you, Stacy, that some people still have their emails with their date of birth, the year in there. That's another big factor for me. I've already got a huge clue there. And as we walk down that rabbit hole of different points that folks have exposed about themselves, it's actually not as difficult as people think it is if I'm really targeting someone to figure out
Yeah.
how to compromise their account. And that leads me to another point that I wanted to make is I anecdotally, talking to a lot of folks in Jamaica, I get a little bit of an impression that it's some of this technology stuff is secondary. It's not that big a deal. But what I try to impress upon them is our lives are going down that path, whether we like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And at least here in the States, one of the things I mentioned to folks, I think there are about three key items that anchor you in the cyberspace: your email address, your phone number, and your social. Your social, of course, is just for everything. That's the equivalent of a TRN. But what a lot of people don't realize is you really, really, really need to secure that email, because as you mentioned, several times yourself, Kerry, when if those notifications are going off, oftentimes the emails are also being sent. But you don't really check your emails. Your email has 5,000 unread messages. And I try to encourage folks that, seriously, if you want to create a separate email account that's just for your financial institutions and you monitor that stuff, nothing should go in there other than those transactions. So if you start seeing a bunch of emails going in, pay attention to that. Really be very mindful of that, and take some time to say, okay, I'm going to make some effort here. And I think that's the overarching conversation we're having here. It's a thing that you have to be active. You have to be diligent. You have to say that I want to be safer online. I want to be, void of a lot of these pitfalls that's happening to a lot of people. And you have to get involved. You have to be part of the process. I'm pretty confident that JMMB is doing all that's necessary. The other financial institutions in Jamaica and overseas, as a person who works, with, some of the federal space here, you'd be surprised at the millions of dollars that are being spent to secure these systems, but someone still uses password 123, and there it goes. So it's not meant to ridicule anyone. It's not meant to make anyone feel bad. It's happening across the board. I've made my own mistakes, but we learn from them. We learn from each other. And I know that's one of the questions that Kerry had going forward, but I'll just kind of touch on it briefly. One of the best ways for folks to really keep abreast of this stuff is pay attention to the email messages and notifications from your financial institutions. Pay attention to the news. For me, as a person that's entrenched in the cybersecurity space, I have some other sources, but that's overkill for the average person. But a lot of times, these things they're broadcast. I follow the Observer and the Gleaner and so on Instagram. I'm aware of what's going on in Jamaica. So follow a couple of those pages while you're at it, not just the entertainment side of things. And
Yeah.
a lot of times you'll see a message pop up that, hey, a certain event, someone was, defrauded XYZ. Take a moment and say to yourself, let me think that through. When was the last time I checked my account? So that's how you just kind of keep abreast of these things. So it's tough, but it's doable. It just takes some
Yeah.
discipline.
And to just piggyback on what Shamir said, be aware, stay informed. And at JMMB, we are putting out the notifications. You're getting direct communication. You're getting their messages being posted on our social media pages. But also, we have quite a number of tips and information of fraud trends, how it is you can protect yourself. It's on our website. It's on our Moneyline platform. So stay informed, be aware. And you can also check out the other banks' websites and platforms and social media pages. There are lots of information there that you can find. One thing I want to point out as it relates to getting the alerts, you only get the alerts if the contact information we have for you is current. So we have had situations where a client 1 million down the line did not detect these card transactions because one had changed his phone number, did not alert us, and no longer uses that email address.
Oh no.
And so all those transaction alerts went unnoticed. So, and just remember, it's not just transaction alerts that we're sending to you. We're sending you verification codes. Verification codes only happen in certain instances. For your online banking, if you're adding a payee or you're making a change to something on your Moneyline profile, if you did not initiate something, but you have received a verification code, something is wrong. That means somebody else has initiated something. You didn't create a payee. Why am I getting a message saying that this is the verification code for a payee that I've just created? You did not make another change, whether it's your limit or whatever it is on Moneyline. Why am I getting a verification code to say this verification code is to facilitate an action done on Moneyline? Immediately contact a financial institution. Something is amiss. So, and monitor your accounts. Like I said, for some financial institutions, the alerts can be turned off. If the alerts are turned off, you still have a responsibility to monitor your accounts. We can all fall victim to it. And it is through monitoring my account that I detected several years ago that my card went to town at a boutique on the other side of Jamaica. So don't think that I can't be susceptible to it. It happened. But fortunately for me, I detected it early and I was able to prevent further compromises. And so, it's important.
I'm glad you raised the point about making sure your contact information is up to date, Stacey, because as I say, not only for the purpose of making sure that you're getting the verification and notifications regarding any transactional activity on your account that you may or may not have originated, but again, when we're sending out advisories about things like this, how to stay safe, acts of fraud and scams that you need to be aware of, if you're not getting them, you're not going to be in the know. So I'm glad you raised that. I also wanted to add, guys, that I think there is something to, yes, making sure that we ourselves as individuals are safe, but I think we also need to remember that we are our brother's keeper, especially within our families. How are we looking out for our more vulnerable friends and family members? I know I have a mom who is in her 70s. She's going to kill me because I just said that.
She
But I
earned
have a
those years. That's what it
yeah,
is.
no, she looks fantastic. So I mean, she needs to just hug it up. But I mean, she's in her 70s. She does online banking, so she's on WhatsApp, she's on Facebook and thing, and she's up to the times where those things are concerned. But because of her age, I'm always sensitive to the fact that she's vulnerable. She will get these calls or she may get these emails, and she legit thinks they are what they are because she doesn't understand the little nuances of checking the URL bar to make sure that the URL is correct, or checking the email. I have something I'm going to bring up shortly. So when I get advisories like that I know are legit, to say, watch out for this kind of scam, watch out for this, I just forward it to her. I say, mommy, look out for this. If you get an email from Amazon to say that your shipment is delayed and you need to click here, ignore it, delete it, mommy. Please don't click on it. And I don't care if she gets annoyed because it's like every week I send her a new one. But I would rather educate her and sensitize her to protect her than, consider make her feel that I'm being annoying. I wanted to bring up something here real quick, guys, because we're wrapping up right about now. But there's something I wanted to bring up. Here it is. This email came in, And I got this email, guys. So when we talk about checking, it's a copy of an email I would have gotten allegedly from Wells Fargo, right? So first of all, I don't have an account with Wells Fargo, okay? But the fraudsters don't care about that because they're
No.
just sending out an email to a bag of people and they must catch some people that have a
Oh,
Wells
yes.
Fargo account. Okay, so that's all they're concerned about. So, but in my case personally, I still kept it, even though I didn't have a Wells Fargo account. I kept it because hey, I knew that we would need to use this as an example someday. So look at what they did, guys, right? And this is for folks who don't know. So Wells Fargo fraud detection. So we will quickly read this and go, oh, this email is legit because it's from Wells Fargo fraud detection, right? But if you look on the actual email address, this ain't Wells Fargo fraud detection, right? Or what even is happening sometimes, guys, is that I know that you'll get an email and all you see is Wells Fargo fraud detection. You wouldn't necessarily see the email address. Sometimes I just hit reply. I'm not actually going to send a reply, but I hit the reply just so I can see the email address. That's a great way to see if the email is actually legit from Wells Fargo. The other thing that they did, so I'm going to ignore the content of the email. But the other thing that they did was this suspension is temporary. So to unlock your account, visit wellsfargo.com, right? And again, I'm looking, oh, yes, this is legit because that's Wells Fargo's website. And what they would have done here is really they just renamed the URL because look where if you highlight it or you click through, you would have been taken to a website with this long, ugly URL that has nothing to do with Wells Fargo and doesn't have Wells Fargo in it, you know. And this is commonly happening in Jamaica right now, where again, people are getting emails or SMSs. And again, the fraudsters getting smarter in this case because they're labeling the hyperlink legitimately as Wells Fargo, counting on the fact that you're going to click through and not check that URL bar, you know. So it's just about, you know, being vigilant. The rudiments don't change. Make sure you know what the email address is that is legit and whether or not the hyperlink is going through to the URL that it says it is.
And
Right?
can I jump in a little bit, Kerry?
Yes.
And actually, one of the other techniques that's pretty common is when you get that email and the hyperlink, even hovering over it at times executes the link. So even that now has become pretty dangerous. So you want to be mindful of that, not even hovering over it anymore. And oftentimes you'll notice a lot of newer, more modern email providers, your Gmail will do it as well. If you notice, you go inside your email and it doesn't open any of the pictures, the images that come with the email. And the reason for that is, again, a lot of this can be interpreted by the browser to run code. So that's why the email client itself will just not allow those pictures. So oftentimes it's a lot of these things that are firing off in the background that you're not seeing, you know. So again, I highly recommend to folks the same theme. If you get a notification, be it SMS or someone calls you or the email, stop right there, end that transaction, so to speak, and then just go to your computer, go to wellsfargo.com, go to jmmb.com, and so on and so forth, and just start the new quote unquote interaction there. You know, you get someone randomly calling you and said, you know, some information, whatever. Yeah, oh, that's great. Oh man, that's unfortunate. Hang up the phone. You know, just play it off nice and even. Give yourself a couple seconds and then go on and just call, as you said before, the known number, you know, for JMMB. So, you know, it's tough. It's an ever changing, you know, arena. You know, there are some really deeper technical things that are happening that a lot of times folks don't get to see. But there are things that we can continue to do to protect ourselves.
Wow, wow, wow. I mean, we could be here for another 2 hours. And I know that we are going to probably have to come back and have this discussion because, as you said, Shamir, as the fraudsters get smarter, I mean, like that hovering thing, I didn't know. I thought,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't click on it, so I'm good.
So
And
can I be honest with you?
go
I
ahead.
know you copied it and saved it into a Word document. I
No,
was
I didn't
cringing.
save it. I didn't
Okay,
save it.
I was cringing the whole time. I was like, "Don't go over that. Don't," because I was like,
No,
"I
yeah.
don't," because
I didn't. I
yeah,
did. I
yeah,
copied it from my Yahoo and dropped it
right,
on just on a. But I haven't saved it, so I'm just gonna
right.
delete it right now. Yeah, like Shamir is like, oh my god.
Don't.
Yeah, no, no, not at all, not at all. Yeah, it don't even have a file name. I didn't save it at all. But yes, Wow, this is great stuff, guys. So I know Shamir started to jump into how can we, which was really my final question about how we can stay informed, right? So we're gonna do things like follow JMMB on social media first and foremost. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook in the main. Keep check in on our website as well. You also want to make sure again that your contact information is up to date so that whenever advisories are being disseminated, we usually like to send advisories via email as well, that you're getting those, right? And also keeping abreast of the news, which was another great recommendation, Shamir, Gleaner and Observer as all the main media houses. Or today, I know Al Edwards would want me to give a shout out to that. TVJ, CBM. I mean, we have so many media houses, lots of radio stations doing this sort of thing, covering the stories of victims, unfortunately, but it's good. And of course, be empathetic as you listen, not just sympathetic, but empathetic, because the reality is that sometimes we are just one moment, one emotion away from just being caught in a place of vulnerability. And if not us, again, our loved ones, our elders, our siblings, our friends, anybody could really fall victim. And so we need to be our brother's keeper and make sure that we are keeping abreast of the information that's out there, sharing it as well. Is there anything else you would add, Stacey, as far as, or did we cover it in terms of how folks can keep abreast of updates and advisories and so on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we reiterate bookmarking or money line?
I don't think so, but you go right ahead, my
Yes.
dear.
Thank you for putting it up there. We want you to bookmark our Moneyline platform. We don't want you searching for it. Just save it so you access it directly from that point. And of course, always log out. Don't save your credentials.
Excellent point. Excellent
Yes.
point. Because yes, we have seen where people, they're not saving the link to the website or Moneyline, and they're going to Google each and every single time to find it. And that's when we would have shared the example earlier. And things like SMS messages, that are not coming from your financial institution, and clicking on those
Yeah.
links that are misspelled. Yes, folks. So go over this. As I said, guys, this was a great conversation. I mean, and I love the point that Shamir made, is that we as financial institutions, a lot of major entities, were spending millions of dollars
Hmm.
to protect our systems, but it just takes one person, one unfortunate client who doesn't have a strong password or clicks on a wrong link, which compromises their information, compromises their accounts, and they become a singular victim in what is otherwise a very secure network or framework, but they unfortunately would have allowed or expose themselves to access by an unscrupulous set of
Right.
individuals, and it's very unfortunate. So we
Right.
want people to stay safe, and I think we'll
Not
just,
share their information. Not share their information. Don't
yeah,
give out. Don't give out your password. Don't give out your PIN.
yes, goes
Don't
without saying.
don't input a verification code when you didn't initiate anything that
Yeah.
warrants a verification.
Yeah. So, guys, I think we'll just wrap it up right there. I mean, well, first of all, I want to thank our wonderful, wonderful subject matter experts who joined us here for this recording. Lots of preparation went into it. Again, it was something we planned with reasonably short notice. I'm so sorry. Haha. I hope they forgive me. But again, we're all passionate about this topic, so we were very all eager to come on and share with everyone. So thank you, Stacey. Thank you, Shamir. Much appreciated. And of course, we have to thank you, our viewing audience, for joining us here for this conversation. Again, we know it's probably the length of a movie by now, a short movie, but hey, this information is important. We have to know how to keep ourselves and our hard-earned money safe. So we appreciate the fact that you've been watching. Again, share this episode, this conversation with anyone whom you believe will find it valuable as well. And we're going to be sharing elements of it across all of our platforms. And we just continue to encourage everyone to do what they need to do to stay safe. I also want to thank my marketing team, who in the background continues to produce these wonderful conversations and making it happen. Thank you, guys. Wishing everyone continued safety and abundance. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.